Board. I'm joined this afternoon by Debbie Oakes, our Vice Chair, Mariah Lestage, our Clerk, Lynn Eichholt, and from the Planning Department, George Meservy, Director of Planning and Community Development, and Karen Sharpless, our Administrative Assistant. Elizabeth Jenkins, our Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development, will be joining us on Zoom shortly. So first item on our agenda is public comment. I don't see anyone in the audience. Is there anyone online with their hand up?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. Next item, communications. George, do we have anything?
No
received?
communications since your agenda went out.
Okay, great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Orleans Comprehensive Plan, the Cape Cod Commission certification process. George, would you like to walk us through that, please?
Yeah, this is brief. Having a certified comprehensive plan has certain benefits with regard to development reviews, development agreements, and I think it is also nonetheless important that we signify the town of Orleans is a participating member in regional planning and get our town plan certified as consistent with the regional policy plan. So upon town meeting approval on the 11th, I began communications with the Cape Cod Commission. They have already seen the draft plan on 2 different occasions and opined and requested some minor changes which were made prior to the final draft. And we have officially filed with the Cape Cod Commission for certification. The first meeting with the full commission will be June 22nd. I think that's at 2 or 3 p.m. at the Cape Cod Commission. I will plan to be there and provide a brief, a 5 to 10 minute presentation, probably in a major way based on the slides we use for the public hearing. Our final plan is still with the graphic designer. They are 1 or 2 weeks away from having a final version for us. And if we can get this in our hands and are happy with it before the end of the fiscal year, I've got a little money in my expense budget, and I would like to get hard copies for the whole planning board, one for the library, town clerk's office, and a couple others, so that we have hard copies of the 2050 plan available.
Excellent, great.
I think that's the extent of my update. If you would like to participate at the Cape Cod Commission level, you're welcome to, and I think it'd be appropriate to have at least one member of the planning board there.
And when is that, on June 22nd? What time is that?
It's at either 2 or 3 p.m.
Just check real quick.
And I will confirm that time. That's when the meeting starts, and when we're on the agenda is not up to us.
I see, okay. I may be able to do that, so I'll get back to you on that.
If you can't, I don't have anything in the middle of that day.
Great.
So we can,
Okay,
one of us can be there.
Excellent.
I am out of town that day,
Okay.
so.
all right, we'll see if we can get as many people as possible to go. At least one of us will be there along with you, George, all right?
Thank you.
Anything else on that?
Nothing.
Sounds like it's moving along. Next item on the agenda is the review of the Governor Prince property redevelopment draft comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We talked about this at the last meeting. The Planning Department has drafted a draft letter for us to review. And George, please walk us through where we are with that, and then we'll go to the board for comments.
Yes, and I think Elizabeth is probably online. Peggy, if you could let her in. Let me start with preliminary comments, and Elizabeth may have some additional things to add. Just reminding the board, this is a comprehensive permit filing under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B. Under this provision, it allows a developer who is providing at least 25% affordable housing in a project to seek waivers from any local regulations and to get essentially one comprehensive permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So on May 20th, the developer made a presentation to the Board of Appeals. They heard it, they asked a lot of questions. It was a pretty substantial meeting, and they did agree to continue the meeting to June 24th. So I hope some of you have had a chance to watch it. I know at least one person did. And with that, I think after maybe Elizabeth adds anything she wanted to add, maybe we could talk about a draft comment letter. Your only responsibility here is to consider whether you wish to issue comments to the board to help them in their decision-making. They are the authority on this matter.
Okay, thank you, George. I want to, for the record, I'd like to mention that Francesca Galassi has joined us via Zoom. Hi, Francesca. Here we are. And Elizabeth Jenkins is with us, of course. Elizabeth, do you want to expand a little bit on where we are?
Hi. No, I think George did a good job covering it. Again, Zoning Board of Appeals, and we talked about this last time, is the comprehensive permit granting authority here. So Planning Board, I think, specifically focusing on matters under the purview of the board to help advise zoning, things that they may not be as familiar with, particularly comprehensive plan compliance. Any comments regarding the land division plan is where I would focus the board discussion.
Great. I'll take comments from the board on the draft letter that George has provided us. Lynn, do you have comments?
I do.
I know.
I do.
Please.
So I watched the 21st meeting, and it was, I think, George, you were nice about it. It was pretty negative of those people who were there. There was one voice that said, this is good. And the negativity was mainly around, there was general negativity about affordable housing, which I tend to dismiss a little in my head. But there was questions about the amount of affordable housing, given that we are, and Elizabeth said this at the meeting, we are at 11% currently of our housing is affordable, which is beyond the 10% threshold. And we could, if we wanted to, get a hold harmless designation or apply for it from the state that would relieve us from having to do more affordable housing. The zoning board debated for quite a while whether to go after that hold harmless and decided not to. But I think the issue was, if you've looked at the plans, there's a large building in the back of the property facing the bikeway that is a large number of units of affordable rental housing. And I think that was the particular issue that a lot of people had. One architect said it was as ugly as it could possibly be. And it was a horrible design, and had a number of comments about it. But the scale and bulk of it, and kind of I'd say the anonymous look of this big white building with lots of units in it bothered people particularly. And much less so, the units that Habitat is building, affordable ownership units, and the attainable units, the townhomes. I would say less so those. So for me at least, the question was, this project, and Elizabeth, correct me, is it about 2/3 affordable, 1/3 attainable, or is it more than that affordable?
So there are.
So more than that.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
75%, would you say? 3/4?
So 78 units in total. 62 of those units are in the two buildings that will be rentals. Those are all affordable at 80 or below. The 7 Habitat homes affordable at 80% AMI, and then it's the 10 townhome units which are attainable.
Okay, got it. So it's
at
more,
200.
yeah, it's more than 3/4. So the question I came away with was, given our targets of 250 attainable, 150 affordable in the comprehensive plan, given we're at the 11%, should we be thinking a different mix in this project? Because it's a golden opportunity. It's, there's not other space like this that's as large. And should we be looking at more attainable versus affordable? So that was my question. Would that better, and that seemed to be the tenor, even though there were some that were so negative, it was hard to tell. But the tenor of the comments was more, we need attainable housing and not so much affordable.
So thank you, Lynn. As a question about that, is that who is the controlling factor? What is the controlling factor of that division between attainable and affordable? Who controls that?
If I may, John, the larger two buildings that contains the 61 tax credit apartments up to 80% AMI, those are in large part the only way a project of this size is economically viable is to obtain tax credits to bring in the equity necessary to build the units. If you try to do them as all attainable, even though the rents would be higher, there is no way the project is balances out on a pro forma. So I think it's, and I'm not trying to convince you either way, but I'm just trying to give you information.
No, I
think
thought there must be a financial issue.
there is a reason, and just one more point, John, I think it's important that we remember, because we can get stuck in this, that any single project does not have to contain every aspect of town goals within it. We have goals for attainable and affordable, and to just develop, increase the housing stock over time, as we all know on the planning board. So this project, in my mind, it's a tremendous credit that it has a variety of income points and ownership and rental, all in the same package, highly consistent with that 10-year housing plan that the town has. But it is not, it's not everything we will need for housing.
So just to summarize here, the financial impact is that there was a town gift, taxpayer gift of the participation in this project, plus the matrix of affordable and the tax credits associated with that make the model work. And so that's really the governing piece of this, is the tax credits involved with it.
That's what makes the finances work.
I see.
Yes.
So if we were to build.
Elizabeth has her hands up,
Yeah,
too.
yeah, go ahead.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks.
Please.
Quickly, I just wanted to add, Lynn talked about this conversation we had about meeting our 10% statutory requirement under 40B for affordable housing. But just because you've hit that statutory 10% does not necessarily mean you're fully meeting your community housing need. At least, two of the biggest projects we have on our subsidized housing inventory are restricted for elderly and disabled residents only, both Rock Harbor, which is 100 units, Tonsett Woods, limited ability to meet community needs relative to affordable housing. So I think it's important to remember, just because we've said, yay, we've done a great job, and it is certainly something to be celebrated that we are meeting our statutory requirements for affordable housing. But I do think it's important to look at it in the perspective of what your community needs are for affordable housing, as George just laid out in our housing needs assessment. And relative to assessing those needs, I think it's important to think about this project on a continuum. As you mentioned, the town bought the land. The town did a needs assessment. The town determined it should be used for housing. We put out an RFP that POAHAC and Habitat responded to with the unit mix that you see now, with the affordable, attainable mix. So I think it's a great question that Lynn is asking, what are our housing needs right now? And we should absolutely be evaluating that for projects going forward. But I do think it's important to remember that this is a project that's well down the road of an existing pipeline.
Elizabeth, thank you. I'll take other comments from the board. Debbie, please.
I was actually going to pipe in what Elizabeth just said, and also what George just said, that having been involved in this project on the Governor Prince task force when we first considered the whole mix, and developed an RFP that went out and was responded to and then was accepted, the mix is all consistent with what the RFP called for and what everyone relied on to developing, to getting their financing in order to be able to do any of it. I'm always going to be open, especially to looking at where the developers cut corners on the aesthetics and try to make sure that doesn't just go through, because I think some of the proposals I'd see, not on this one specifically, but they were preliminary designs, so they weren't really detailed out, and they can look like warehouses instead of like attractive, larger housing buildings. And I haven't seen this at all, so I don't know what they've come in with their final plans, but, I don't know, it's a little concerning that having been working on this for how many years? 4 years? That
Seven.
it-
7.
7, oh, time really flies. To think that we're talking about whether to do affordable housing or not, wow, I don't know what
Yeah,
else to
it
say,
was-
but wow.
Well, it was, I mean, again, my sense, giving people their due that were there were a couple that were questioning the need for any more affordable housing, but I think people really had a concern about, as I said, the large building, and that really we want something like that, and people had concerns about more attainable, that, that middle and that missing middle. And, again, they were sort of reflecting the mix that the comprehensive plan has going forward for the next 8 years now, right? Which is 2/3 attainable and 1/3 affordable. And this project is kind of
Reverse.
yeah, so I don't think most people were saying no affordable, no way. Most. It was just the mix and the design of the very large building, which I have to say, and I also said in my note to George and Elizabeth that, I'm not an architect and not a design person, but it looked pretty bad. I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
you talk about big white
Yeah.
generic buildings. It was a big white generic
Yeah.
building. It was not very attractive from my layperson's view. It needed a little work.
I have a question on that subject. I have a question for George. Did anywhere in this process, was there a stopover at the Architectural Review Committee for a report on their findings here?
The applicant went through site plan review voluntarily. As you know, under the 40B, they're not obligated to go to any other boards. And the Architectural Review Committee looked at this, excuse me, on May 14th, and they'll meet again on May 28th to determine if they want to submit any comments. I think from the planning board's perspective, it might be good to stay within the comprehensive plan, the subdivision control law, which I've commented on, because there's a subdivision of 9 lots. You can pass that around. I think you've all seen it, but just to refresh on the 9 lots. And to, maybe we can let architectural review do the architectural planning, unless you feel strongly you want to pass a comment along. You're certainly open to any comment you want.
Well, I think what we want to get to, I want to get more comments from the board before we get to this, but when we get to the draft letter, one of the comments is an array of architectural styles in the development is diverse and consistent with aspirations for future downtown. We may want to strike that only because it's aesthetic comment, which is really not necessarily our purview, So, we're more into the technical, does it, meet the requirements and all of that.
Although I think we just went through this big zoning overlay district process where we laid out pretty strict design guidelines, even though we're not calling them that, but they are, and that allow for, in fact, call for substantial sized buildings, because that's the only way to make it economically viable to build additional housing that is attainable. So we're in this tension right away. Here you've got your big building, and in this case, like I said, I haven't seen it personally, so we don't have, and it maybe not our purview, we have architectural review to comment on it, but, the big building in the back is kind of the idea that we're going forward with throughout the town, right? That you need a bigger building than we're used to having, and putting it in the back away from the street, makes the entryway, the public view of the development, more consistent, I guess, with town character.
Well, it's a question for George and Elizabeth. Does it meet the design guidelines that we put for downtown?
Elizabeth did an analysis of this. She talked to you about it.
Sorry, I was just coming off mute. Yeah, so we did spend some time because the question came up also at Zoning Board of Appeals, because the idea of that overlay was to start to move downtown into something more cohesive, more village oriented, and away from something more generic and auto oriented. So in looking at it, I think Debbie, you're spot on. The overall intent was to, have buildings that were smaller scale, sort of more human scale, I should say, on the street, in order to screen larger buildings necessary to make the economies of scale for, affordable, attainable year-round housing to work in the back. So I went through, so that framework is obviously in place. The buildings in the front with porches that are oriented to the street to encourage, walkability and interaction. The parking pushed way back so it's not visible. The larger buildings pushed way back so they are less visible. Everything, again, sort of with a pitched gable roof, everything with facade articulation, breaks in that roof, pushes and pulls in excess of what the zoning would require. The footprints are not spot on, so we were looking for sort of 4,000, 2,000 footprints in the village center up front. Both of those buildings are 2,500 square feet, so they're certainly in the range of scale that we were looking at. The larger buildings, one's about, I think, 9,800, the other one about 16,000, so still in the range of what we were looking for, a little bit bigger, but also, not as tall as they could be, and with more facade articulation that we required. So I would say overall, even though they didn't have the benefit of the housing overlay when they started doing that initial planning, overall, I think the development is very consistent with the intent that the intentions and the things that we were trying to achieve with the overlay district.
Elizabeth, thank you for those comments. Any other comments from the board? Mariah, anything, please?
Quick question, in part because I'm not familiar with the whole process here. If their mix is sort of inverted from what we had called for in the comprehensive plan, is there opportunity to still go back and revisit that in this process? Like for the attainable and affordable housing?
I think,
Just to speak to that, right from the 40B bylaw, the Board of Appeals can consider comments and make conditions, provided their conditions of a project do not render it uneconomic. And if you're talking about taking away 60 to 75% of the equity in the project, I think that would change it entirely.
Got it.
Just to be clear, the project is highly consistent with the RFP that the town put out at the end of that planning committee process that I think was more than a year long. So this is what the townspeople thought was best for this location at the time.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Francesca, any comments? See your hand up.
Thank you. I kind of so have a question, and I haven't yet watched the meeting with the ZBA, so I apologize that I'm not fully informed about that. Mostly just about the kind of like 80% AMI conversation with the larger building. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly and like thinking about it in context with probably my generation, who are the folks that would be renting there. Is it the larger building that is that at 80% for rental units? Is that correct? The
two,
Yeah.
so there are the two larger buildings, the one in the back and the one in the middle with sort of the gable facing the street. They have about 40 and 20 units in them respectively. And those are the fully deed restricted buildings. The mix, affordable mix in there ranges from as low as 30% AMI to up to 80% AMI.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to know, while we of course do want to encourage young professionals in those buildings, and we hope to see a lot of that, I will say about half of the residents at Fair and 107 are 55 and older. So.
Right. Yeah, I was just looking at the like the income and rent limits that are posted on our town website and just like in general. And I think that is an interesting thing that we sometimes forget about when we're thinking about who is in like more affordable housing. It tends, it can be a population that is retired or living on a fixed income versus, someone of my generation that might be like scaling in terms of the income that we're capable of making. And so that can make, I think that can like make it a little bit more complicated for people of my generation to see income restrictions when we're looking at opportunities for rental or home ownership. But I think what matters is that like I'm looking at, what 80% for a 1 bedroom, the rent limit is $2,136. Like that's still
Thank you, that's a lot of money.
expensive. Yeah. So the reality is like, from my perspective, having more option and more opportunity is only a benefit for any range of the folks that are looking for housing in Orleans or on like the Lower and Outer Cape. So yeah, it's just it is tricky to have to meet those kinds of constraints on a project, but there's definitely the need for it.
Great. Thank you, Francesca, for your comments.
Yeah.
If no other comments at this point, I'd like to talk about the draft letter. And if anyone has any comments on the letter concerning the different bullet points that are here, concerning general comments, notes on zoning, and notes on the division of land and other considerations. I have a couple, but I'll defer to the board first for any particular comments on the comment letter that I think that we would like to present to the ZBA because, we're in the loop and we should provide some comments here. Anyone? Comments on the letter? While you're looking through it again, I'll just give you a couple of mine real quick. Bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the one I read before. The array of architectural styles in the development is diverse and consistent with aspirations for the future of the downtown. I guess that's okay. It sort of veers into the Architectural Review Committee territory, but that's not a problem. Second bullet under zoning, the project exceeds the minimum number of affordable units, we talked about that already, required to meet the additional units meeting community goals. It's just a comment, doesn't require a change, but it's a comment. I think we're okay with that. And then on the flip side, if you're following along, third bullet is the 7 lots for single homes are shown with building envelopes that encroach upon the required front and side setbacks. People have talked to me about that and a little concerned about that. Waivers were requested. This arrangement is consistent with compact downtown development. It does not appear to cause any concerns. George, please.
The reason, and this is just a draft, but the reason that is in there is because the developer could do this project without doing a subdivision. But this is the format that they want to do to work with Habitat that likes to have single standalone lots. So if this project were done, the town of Orleans does allow what we call apartments under zoning to be attached or detached. So they could have a party wall, they could have almost a very small setback. In this case, they have fairly small setbacks on the sides and the front.
I think there's been some, let's call it community concern about setbacks from 6A.
Yes, and the setbacks from 6A under the overlay district would be, I think it was 8 to 15 feet. Am I right, Elizabeth?
That's correct. I think it's
Yeah.
8 to 14. Yep.
Yeah, and so and the Habitat houses that we're talking about here are not on 6A. They are on an access road or driveway. And I might just tweak up the words to take away the word street from that second bullet and just cross it out in one place and call it interior drive in the other. So I'd just like to make that
Okay,
because it's not going to be a laid out road.
okay, thank you. Those are the only comments I have. Otherwise, I think the letter is fine. And I'll take any other comments from the board on the letter. Anyone?
I guess, I don't know if we
Debbie,
want to
please.
bother doing this, but contrary to the idea of taking out the array of architectural styles, I'm wondering if we should also refer to the housing overlay district zoning that we just did.
Debbie, we,
That also talks about architectural styles.
we could put in parentheses, street fronting facades, smaller footprints near 6A, articulated buildings, and the provision of a sidewalk as examples.
Yeah. I think some reference to it makes sense. I mean, we're building on what we're doing, right? We did that.
Right.
It was accepted by the town. And now here's a project that fits within those guidelines.
I mean, essentially, if we were starting the Governor Prince project today under the new overlay rules, we wouldn't be involving the ZBA at all.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's another concern I had, and it's not our purview per se, but if I were to guess what the ZBA is gonna do, they're gonna muck around in the architecture. And
Yeah, there
that's
were
not
comments.
a good idea.
It's a very bad idea.
And they have one person, she's an architect and she's thoughtful, but the rest of them are just like me. You know, hopefully thoughtful, but not architects. You don't want us mucking around. So, I just, you know, is there any way to just recommend, if we're gonna really try to tweak it architecturally, massing and all that stuff, it needs to be a group that is qualified to do it.
I
And
vote for that.
and so, you know, and just because the ZBA has the final authority, should they be the ones that do all this tweaking with the project people? I don't think so. So is there a way to recommend that in here?
Well, that, and also, do we want to make a statement, because I don't think we have the statement in here, a statement that, that it meets the, I don't think we say it that way, but that it meets the provisions of the overlay district. We don't say that.
Didn't I just say that?
Elizabeth, were there any that it did not meet?
Well, it's a little hard, as you stated, because it's, you know, there's sort of divisions of land internal to the bigger project. So it's sometimes a little bit hard to evaluate things like what are the setbacks, for example? Are we looking at it from 6A or from our internal lot size?
Maybe it's
trying to
better
think
to
if there was
say
a-
meets the intent of.
Yeah, I mean, clearly on the intent. Yes, if you really want to dig in, I'm sure there are provisions in there where, you know, if they were doing it under the overlay, they would have to adjust. But, you know, in terms of the overall placement of the buildings, the ratio of parking to open space, you know, all of that I feel like is generally consistent with the overlay.
Or maybe that's the term, generally consistent with. You know, I think if we have a statement in there, it recognizes what the town voted for, and these are comments from the planning board. I think it should tie the two together in some way. Other comments about the letter?
But
Wait.
it sounds like though you're not suggesting we put something in that if there's gonna be tweaks to the design and a back and forth about the design, that we suggest it be, if the architectural review committee is the
Yes.
right one, then it be them to do that with the project people rather than do it before the ZBA votes on it.
Well, am I clear in understanding, George, that the architectural review, you said met on May 14th, they're meeting again, and that they will provide their own letter to the ZBA with
They
their
will.
comments?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they will. It's up to them.
So maybe in our comments, and I agree, Lynn, that we should have a statement in here or a comment that, you know, we defer, let's call it aesthetic comments to the forthcoming architectural review. Some language like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Because I think that that's the, you know, to go back to the several comments that have been made about that, is that we want the right people doing the right things here, and not, to use your term, mucking around. Let's keep in our lanes here for what we're supposed to be doing. You know, and I think that's certainly their purview and not ours necessarily. Other comments? Oh, yes, Francesca, you have your hand up?
Just a note about, I agree, in terms of that language, that it's kind of more of the purview of architectural review to give that kind of design-based feedback, but I don't know that I entirely feel comfortable, like, I don't know if that's the meaning of the word defer, and I know this is like probably too semantic, but without knowing what their comments are,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to give the position that I personally, or as a board, am in agreement with them, beyond the fact that it's just recognizing that it's not our conversation. Although that also then feels a little bit like it's not consistent with us mentioning the overlay district and the design, kind of guideline with that either. So that feels like a tension
Yeah.
to me that I don't quite understand.
John?
Well, I think your point is well taken, and we'll have to work out the semantic maneuvering and all of that to get it right.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree. Debbie, please?
Yeah, I just want to support what you're saying, really, that maybe not defer, but actually, I'm not drafting here, but encourage the Architectural Review Committee, which now has at least one and I think two architects on it, to, weigh in on the design and encourage, I don't know how you say it, the Zoning Board of Appeals, it seems like that's way outside their purview, to consider the aesthetics of a building or a development. And this kind of this happened when we went through the whole RFP process with the Governor Prince, that the town would do well to hire professional architects to represent the town's interests, given all of the feedback that we've developed at this point, all the guidelines we've developed, to weigh in on any big project. And this is a very big project. It's going to be here for a long time. We're probably going to get more. And there are lots of ways to tick off the boxes of, for example, the overlay district, and say you've met all the criteria, and end up with a really, really ugly building. And, I've said this before, and I'm just going to keep saying it. I just think it's really important. We've had a couple of design things happen that if there were a stronger design voice for the town, I think we would have better outcomes. And this is a classic example. And having the Zoning Board of Appeals, which may or may not have an architect, it happens that it does, but, or landscape designers or any designers weighing in, we're just not going to end up with the best. It's not that everybody's going to like it no matter who does it, but at least it should be, have design integrity.
Yep. And again, this is outside of the normal process. But the zoning board does have an architect, qualified town architect who works here. And it would be, as I listened to all of this, I thought to myself, and the lawyer for the project said, we'll work with a small group of you. We've often done that in these projects to get it right. And I thought to myself, a member of the ZBA, the architect, should maybe work with the Architectural Review Committee, and then there'd be input from both places, and that would be, we talk about committees coordinating. It would be a good way to get coordination, because she knows all the comments that were made at the public hearing, right?
Right.
So,
Lynn and Debbie, thank you for your comments. I know, Elizabeth, you had your hand up? Sorry.
Yeah, I think you got to what I wanted to say, which was, you certainly as the planning board have put some excellent tools in place. And these are the times when I would lean on those. You have excellent design guidelines. We have guidelines for design of buildings in our housing overlay. So regardless of who's administering those, I think it would be appropriate to say that the design review be administered, in consideration and consistent with those adopted guidelines and standards that we have in our zoning. Those were put together by professional architects for the benefit of the town. It's a matter of administering them and applying them at this point.
Thank you. Great. Other comments from the board? I think, George, you have some notes there. If we could, at this point, redraft a letter or just make the necessary changes in the letter draft that we have, and we'll take a look at that when that's available.
So you can't, if I may, John.
Please.
You can do that now, or you can do it later. I have 3 sentences to offer after your discussion that would be added. Probably, I'll figure out where to put them, if you trust me with that, but the 3 sentences would be, we found the placement of buildings, parking ratios, and other aspects of the design to be generally consistent with the downtown housing overlay district. We encourage you to address specific architectural details in consultation with the Architectural Review Committee, which is the board designated to address architecture in the town. And design review should be consistent with the design guidelines adopted by the planning board. And they probably don't go at the end, they probably go somewhere in the early general comments.
Okay.
I think those are the only changes.
Yeah.
And I would, you want to keep that architectural style bullet, the 5th bullet in there?
That's fine with me. It's just a question. Yeah. Okay. That sounds reasonable to me. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
I think you're getting,
Drafting on the fly.
Yep, and you're gonna keep the thing about parking in here, right?
I
Under-
was going to keep.
Yeah,
it in
because
there.
I thought that was, there was a little bit of a general comment about the amount of concrete. So, and what
Yeah.
you're saying, I think it's important to point out, they don't have to have quite as much as they do.
Elizabeth and I had a discussion about this. The town has lowered its minimum requirement of, to 1 space per dwelling, regardless of the dwelling size. But the development community is out there producing projects and seeing how they work and managing them after the fact. They're best informed to see how much parking their development actually needs. So this is about a 1.4 ratio. When I looked at it, you could probably make more green space, but you may wish you had not in the future, depending on how it's used.
great. With those changes, if there's no objection, I think we'll, George, please redraft a letter with all those changes in it. I'll go sign it, and we can send it off to ZBA.
Good.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, Town Cove and Downtown Resiliency Planning. Elizabeth, I think this is yours.
It is. Thank you, John. Just wanted to provide a board an update on this project because we are at a point where we have an important milestone. So again, just a recap, this is a project that looks at resilience planning around the downtown area that surrounds the Town Cove water body. So we've done some sort of in-depth look and some detective work around the ecology and natural hydrology of this area, how it's been altered by development over time, and the impacts that has both today and potentially in the future on how we all as a community view and experience that area, and then certainly some of the larger health and, again, some flooding and stormwater issues that are there as well. So it's looking to put all these pieces together into a long-range plan for the area that leans on green infrastructure to promote resilience. So in order to get the community more involved in this conversation, we are putting on an event series. It is a 3-part series and designed so that folks can attend multiple or all events. They will be hosted on Friday, June 5th and Saturday, June 6th. Friday, June 6th, we are having 2 events. 3 o'clock, we're gonna meet at the library and have a walking tour for folks who really want to, I think, see an area that they probably drive by all the time through a new lens. Where we're going to have 2 experts from our consulting partners, engineers and landscape architects from Dotson and Flinker, just again talk about some of the landscape that's there, some of the plants you see, and then their impact on the environment, and then really listen to people and their ideas, what they might want to see there in the future. So we're going to do that sort of brief walk around, and then it is also First Fridays here in Orleans, which is an event that the town holds as part in collaboration with the Merchants Association to get people to stay late and come out to the businesses. So we are partnering with that First Friday group and the Barley Neck Inn to hold a talk and sort of can't call it a happy hour because of ABCC regulations, but we're going to have some First Friday apps out there at the Barley Neck for folks who, again, just want to come learn a little bit more about the project. You're interested in ecological infrastructure, what that is, what that might look like. Just a little, a brief little snapshot. We're going to have some kind of fun, interactive tools that folks can do while they're there to, again, just look at kind of the findings that we have to date, how the history of development has impacted the area, and really thinking about how, what an ecologically informed plan might look like for the future. And those two events are really a lead up to Saturday, June 6th, which is our community design workshop. This is going to start at 10 o'clock and sort of in a drop-in format at the library, where, again, our project team will be out there. Really an interactive day designed to, I think, help people learn about the areas, the interaction between the built and natural environment, and help us problem solve issues that we see here, how to prepare for future flooding, how to improve walkability and connectivity for pedestrians and bicycles, how to connect downtown to the Cove, how to improve water quality and ecological health. So we're going to have a series of stations that folks can come and really help us I think, set a positive course for this project and come up with some real world solutions to build resilience for the area in the future. And huge thanks to our working group who has been guiding us along the way. Peter from the planning board, of course, and others, again, who've been sort of informing our decisions and how this conversation, including how that workshop is going to look. And if you're a little bit more interested, but again, maybe can only come to pieces, we also recorded a Town Talk podcast, which I believe hits the airwaves on Thursday, that talks again a little bit about the work we've done leading up to this, as well as this idea of green or ecological infrastructure and how that might be applied here in the future. So lots going on with this project, and we hope that we will see you at First Fridays.
Great. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Any comments from the board? If not, appreciate that update. I want to go into our next item, which is committee reports. Francesca, CPC.
Sure. Not a ton to report in terms of committee activity, but we just recently passed the CPC's warrant article at our Springtown meeting, which was very exciting. And we are, hearing back from the groups that we've already funded, and excited to get started on the groups that will be funded in this current cycle.
Great, thank you. Lynn, Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee has not met since the town meeting, so no update.
Okay, good enough, thank you. Economic Development, Debbie?
Kind of ditto.
Ditto.
Yeah, because the last meeting was canceled because of town meeting.
Okay,
so,
well, okay, no
haven't
activity,
met
that's
for a
fine.
while yet.
Okay, Mariah, Transportation and Bikeways?
Yes, we did meet just before town meeting, and at that point, they were talking about the Main Street redesign and engineering. They were looking, there was a warrant article at town meeting to allocate funds for the study of the design and the engineering. George, do you recall if that passed? I'm sorry, I wasn't at town meeting.
The funding did get approved at town meeting as part of the DPW facilities plan. Yes,
It did.
passed.
Okay, great. And outside of that, they're installing some new share the road signs around town, so keep your eyes open for those. And that was really about it.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the planning board minutes for April 28th. And I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. see how many voting members we have here. Okay, so I think we're all right. It's been moved and seconded. We'll take all those in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. So we are
I
approved.
think I have to abstain, so I'm not voting. since I
Because you
wasn't
weren't here? You can still vote on them. Okay,
I'll assume Karen did a
okay. But we
splendid
still
job,
have
as
a
always.
quorum, so we're fine
Yeah.
without your vote, so, right. Thank you. Next item of the agenda is future agenda items. George, please.
I hesitate to even talk about your next zoning task. The planning department has already started work on the zoning modernization and some of the things that we may wish to tweak on the housing overlay district and a couple other things. So if zoning amendments are to be taken up at a November town meeting, we work backwards from there. And we probably are looking at June and July to do the development of the sort of the basic drafting of what we want to change and talk to the planning board about it on a consistent basis and maybe have a public hearing either late August, early September, so that we're in a position to submit an article or articles in good time for a special town meeting in the fall. So we will try to make this as easy on all parties as we possibly can and get these things done. I think the bylaw is getting into terrific shape. In the same way, although it does not require a town meeting vote, the growth incentive zone that we talked about a meeting or two ago appears to be a very good idea for certain aspects where we want to encourage growth, and there are probably relegated simply to multifamily development and not to mixed use, but perhaps those thresholds, talk about changing the thresholds for Cape Cod Commission review of larger projects in town within the area the town is designated for growth. So that can go on in a parallel track this summer with a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that they submit the application. They need to sign off on it before it goes. They're the authority. And lastly, in follow-up to the overlay district, in November, UTIL has been working on a housing typologies sort of, booklet that describes how you could use the overlay district in small, medium, and large lots, and what it would look like if you maxed it out, and how I think it would be just a good developer guide. So it doesn't have regulatory teeth in it, but it's something that I think is a good follow-up to the overlay and helps developers get oriented to what the town wants. So that'll be coming your way for review and comment. That project actually ends on June 30th, so that will be sometime in June as well.
Great, okay. I want to add to the future agenda items, two other items. One is, and it won't come up probably at the next meeting, but the second meeting in June, we're probably going to want to talk about our summer schedule. And traditionally, the planning board takes the fourth Tuesday in July and the fourth Tuesday in August off. We haven't done that in the last couple of years because of comprehensive plan and zoning and all those things. So unless there are, of course, any regulatory issues that come up, we're probably going to want to entertain a vote on canceling those two meetings for this summer, but that'll come up in June. Also, just want to get on everybody's radar screen. The first meeting in July, which is July 14th, is also our reorg, and we want to be looking to that, where we get new officers for the board, and there may be a couple of board additions coming up. So we want to entertain those at that point. So that would traditionally be when we would do our reorganization for the year. And so if nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Aye.